For the last 3 decades, Vietnam has been one of the world's most incredible economic success stories, just an absolute powerhouse. But that very success, the one that was built on a very specific model of growth, has now created a new, really high-stakes challenge that's going to define its entire future.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at the absolute miracle of Vietnam's growth. Then, we're going to uncover the new risks it's facing in this new era, get into 4 supercritical challenges, and finally, explore the country's ambitious plan for a truly sustainable future.
Okay, so to really get a handle on where Vietnam is going, we first have to appreciate just how unbelievably far it's come. And it all kicked off with a series of bold, game-changing decisions. It really boils down to 3 huge moments that launched Vietnam onto the global stage. Back in '86, the Doi Moi reforms basically opened the door. Then, normalizing relations with the US in '95 swung that door wide open. And joining the World Trade Organization in 2007, that cemented its place in the world economy for good. And the result of those decisions? It was just staggering. As you can see right here, Vietnam's GDP went through the roof, growing from just over $6 billion in 1990 to over $260 billion by 2019. That's a more than 40 times increase in less than 30 years. Just incredible. The rocket fuel for all this growth was international trade. Between joining the WTO and 2019, its export turnover jumped more than 6 times over. This pushed its trade openness, which is just the sum of its imports and exports, to a mind-boggling 210% of its GDP. That made it one of the most open economies on the entire planet.
But here's the twist, the paradox in this whole story. The very things that powered this amazing rise, that incredible openness to trade and foreign money, are now creating some profound new risks in our rapidly changing world.
See, we're now in an era that people are calling globalization 4.0. And this isn't just about shipping goods anymore. Oh no, it's about this fusion of technologies. We're talking AI, big data, the Internet of Things, that are completely rewriting the rules of how you compete and create value on a global scale.
So, what does this all mean for Vietnam? Well, it means they're at a huge crossroads. The old playbook, relying on cheap labor to bring in foreign companies, it's just not going to cut it anymore. The country is now staring down 4 specific challenges that could actually stop its incredible progress in its tracks.
So let's really dig in and look at these 4 big hurdles that Vietnam absolutely has to overcome if it wants to keep climbing that ladder and become a high-income nation.
And the thing is, these 4 challenges aren't separate problems. Not at all. They're all tangled together. They all come from that same fast foreign-driven growth model, a massive reliance on foreign companies, being stuck as an assembly hub, and having a workforce that could get left behind by all this new tech.
And the scale of this dependency is just immense. Get this, 70%, a full 70% of all export revenue comes from foreign-owned companies. And if you look at high-tech stuff, it's even more extreme. Foreign firms account for 99.7% of all mobile phone and electronics exports, almost everything. And this chart, it lays out the second problem perfectly. Vietnam is fantastic at the final assembly part. But look, it's importing a huge chunk of the valuable stuff. It spends over $51 billion on electronics parts just to export $87 billion worth of finished products. That gap means it's only capturing a small piece of the final profit.
This example with Samsung just hits the nail on the head. You've got this massive production happening right there in Vietnam, but almost no local Vietnamese companies are managing to break into the really valuable parts of the supply chain. They aren't the ones making the complex, high-profit components, at least not yet.
And this all leads us to the final interconnected risks, labor and data. A massive 78% of the workforce is considered unskilled. At the same time, almost 14% of all jobs are at risk of being automated away. And to top it all off, over 40% of employees don't even have basic IT skills, which creates a huge cybersecurity weakness as the country goes digital.
So, with these monumental challenges staring them down, you might be asking, what's the plan? Well, Vietnam has put forward a really comprehensive 3-part strategy. And this isn't about just tweaking the old model. It's about building a whole new foundation for growth.
This is a fundamental shift. The entire strategy is built on 3 interconnected pillars. First, creating a dynamic digital economy. Second, fostering a green economy that actually protects the environment. And third, and this is so important, investing in its own people through human resource development.
And each of these pillars comes with some seriously ambitious goals. They want the digital economy to make up a fifth of the whole GDP by 2025. New green standards are meant to reverse past environmental damage. And crucially, they're focused on upskilling their workforce to escape the middle-income trap. You know, that's that economic dead end where a country gets stuck. It's not cheap enough for basic factory work anymore, but it's not innovative enough to compete with the big guys. It's a tough spot to be in.
And really, this quote sums up the entire mindset shift. The new strategy recognizes that the next wave of prosperity isn't going to come from assembling things more cheaply, it's going to come from homegrown innovation that can actually harness the power of this new technological revolution.
Look, Vietnam has already proven to the world that it can achieve miraculous growth against all odds. So the defining question now, the real high-stakes question, is whether this new, ambitious plan can finally transform it from the world's workshop into a prosperous, innovative, and truly sustainable nation for the next generation.